85. And we have just a lot of slow traffic. I would avoid the Guadalupe Parkway. Steve mentioned 880. That would be southbound 880 between Tennyson and Industrial. They're clearing it, but it's already done its damage. It's slow from 238. We also have the Bay Bridge backed up to the Maze. And this morning, Highway 4, there's a crash just off the freeway, but you can see it from the freeway, so you can see traffic is slow on Highway 4, extra slow getting over to Concord. 7:01. Let's get back to the headlines.
Thank you, Sal. On this election day, voters here in California are deciding the fate of Proposition 50, which seeks to redraw the state's congressional map to flip 5 seats in the House of Representatives in favor of Democrats. KT's James Torres live in Redwood City, where James, polls have just opened.
Just a minute ago, Garcia, good morning to you, and they will stay open for the next 13 hours, all while we're learning from data coming to us from the state that more than 23 million voters are eligible to be part of this election. 6 million have already returned a ballot, and top Democrats are hoping to get some more of those votes out before the deadline later tonight. A Democrat delegation from the House spent the day in San Francisco alongside Governor Gavin Newsom, led by Representative Nancy Pelosi. That delegation included representatives like Kevin Mullen, Zoe Lofgren, Latifah Simon, and Eric Swalwell. They told reporters this Proposition 50 is in direct response to Texas redrawing its district mid-decade to benefit Republicans during next year's midterm elections, adding California doesn't want to be involved in that kind of practice, but it needs to.
If Texas withdraws what it's doing, we won't have to go down this path. We are committed to commission redistricting. We don't like having to do a redistricting mid-decade. That's just not normal. But it's normal for the Republicans because they did it in Texas.
They did it in North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Those voting against Prop 50 say it takes independent redistricting power away from voters and offers too much power to elected officials. Republican Representative Kevin Kiley posted on X a snippet of an interview he did with Fox Local Live Now. His district would be affected by Prop 50, and he argues, despite the language saying the measure is temporary, he finds that hard to believe.
This does pass. It would be very difficult for California to return to a system of fair representation. And so that temporary word, I think, is very misleading at the very least.
States like Virginia and Illinois are also looking at plans to redraw maps to help Democrats. Missouri, Ohio, and Indiana are among others considering what to do to help Republicans. Later this morning, back here in the Bay Area, some San Mateo County leaders will lead a Yes to Prop 50 rally as voters continue to return their ballots. As we mentioned, polls are now open. They'll stay open until 8 o'clock tonight. We're live this morning in Redwood City. I'm James Torres, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
James, thank you. 2 East Bay lawmakers say federal agents may try to intimidate California voters on this election day. The Trump administration says they sent them to California to ensure ballot security and to ensure the state is following federal election laws. Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell and Mark DeSaulnier say they could have a major impact on the outcome of today's election. They say they've received reports of increased federal immigration activity in their districts in recent days and say ICE agents have been spotted near polling places. They're denouncing the Trump administration's actions as election interference.
Nobody asked for this. We were promised that we would target the most violent, undocumented immigrants in our community.
This is the most corrupt administration, certainly in our lifetimes, and maybe in history.
The 2 congressmen say voting is more important now than ever and call it the best way to stop the Trump administration's alleged voter intimidation tactics.
Our time is now 7:05. Well, shortly after this election day, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is expected to make a big announcement. The Congresswoman from San Francisco will reportedly tell us whether she'll run for re-election or end her long and legendary political career. Nancy Pelosi is 85 years old and has served in the House for almost 40 years. She was elected Speaker of the House twice and is the first woman in U.S. history to hold the gavel on Capitol Hill. Nancy Pelosi's spokesperson released this statement responding to questions about her political future. It says, quote, Speaker Pelosi is fully focused on her mission to win the Yes on 50 election in California. Any discussion of her future plans beyond that mission is pure speculation. As she has said, Speaker Pelosi will not make any announcement about her future until Prop 50 is settled. Now, fellow San Francisco Democrat, State Senator Scott Wiener recently announced he intends to run for Nancy Pelosi's seat. Progressive candidate and software engineer Shrikant Chakrabarty also is running to represent San Francisco in the House.
One of the most closely watched races this election day is the race for New York City mayor. Live pictures here as polls opened in New York more than 3 hours ago, the nation's largest city. We see people filling a polling place. Democrat Zohran Mamdani, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, and Republican Curtis Sliwa are all now making a last-minute push for votes. Both Mamdani and Cuomo cast their votes early this morning. Mamdani is a state assembly member, a virtual political unknown just 8 months ago, but his progressive proposals have put him at the forefront of the race for mayor, and he's become something of a well-known politician in New York and beyond. Last night, President Trump endorsed Andrew Cuomo for mayor and threatened to withhold federal funds from New York City if Mamdani wins.
When we think about how best to fight Donald Trump, one way we can do so is by understanding Andrew Cuomo for what he is, the candidate endorsed by Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Stephen Miller.
President Trump doesn't support me. He opposes Mamdani, right? He believes that Mamdani is an existential threat to New York. He believes he's a communist. He believes he'll bankrupt New York.
Mamdani beat Cuomo in the Democratic primary back in June with 56% of the vote. Polls in New York close at 6 o'clock our time. We'll have updates on this and local races through the evening for you on our newscast here on KTVU and streaming on the Fox Local app.
Our time now 7:08. A park in Fremont will be closed for the next few months as the city is conducting a sweep of one of its biggest homeless encampments. The sweep, affecting about 40 people, started yesterday at the encampment at Isherwood Park near the Quarry Lakes Regional Recreation area. The crew started removing tents and cleaning up the park and its waterways after neighbors complained about unsafe and unsanitary conditions. However, some homeless advocates say the city's not doing enough to help those people who are now forced to look for a new place to live.
What's success for me is when people are not only inside, but have the safety of a home where they can lock their own door and they don't have to leave.
Now, the city of Fremont says it will be spending the next 2 weeks making sure everyone who lived at the Fremont Park will have a safe place to live. A spokesperson says the city has signed a contract with Mission Peak Lodge and other Fremont hotels to offer temporary housing. Well, the FBI and Oakland police released some new video of 2 suspects in the burglary back in October at the Oakland Museum of California. It happened on October 15th around 3:30 in the morning. A security camera shows the suspects at the museum's off-site storage facility. One was wearing a mask. The other appears to cover his face. More than 1,000 artifacts were stolen. Investigators believe the theft was a crime of opportunity and not a targeted crime. It is 7:10. He was a congressman, a defense secretary, and vice president of the United States. Remembering the life and legacy of Dick Cheney and his influence and controversies in and out of the White House.
A leader in the field of artificial intelligence and a 9-time NBA champ share the stage in San Francisco. What they said about artificial intelligence and the security lapse that caused concern at the very start of this forum.
Jacoby & Myers has been a proud part of the California community since 1972. We've stood by our neighbors, helping hundreds of thousands of families get the justice they deserve. Whether it's fighting insurance companies or fighting for you in court, we'll stand up for you. At Jacoby & Myers, we know the stakes: your family, your health, your future. For over 50 years, we've been California's trusted name in legal care. If you've been injured, call us today at 1-800-5-MILLION, because you deserve justice.
Two of San Francisco's biggest names in sports and tech shared a stage together last night. Our Andre Sr. here with a look at the biggest takeaways from this talk between Warriors head coach Steve Kerr and OpenAI CEO Sam Altman's conversation. Andre?
Well, the two covered, Garcia, a wide range of topics, including AI fears and the future of San Francisco. Altman addressed concerns about AI risks, including ethics and job losses, saying he believes that tech has done more good than bad. The crowd also applauded Kerr's activism on social issues, including gun reform. Both expressed wanting to tackle challenges like inequity and affordability.
I don't think we'll look back in a few decades and say AI was a pure force for good. We're happy with everything that AI brought into the world. I think we will say it was a big net good, like a huge net good, in the way that if we look at previous technological revolutions, we're not happy with. Most of us are not happy with everything.
I realized, after my first year or two here that I had quite a platform, and I probably should use it for something good. There have been times in the sports world where athletes and coaches took on a pretty big role. More athletes than coaches. There weren't a lot of coaches that really kind of did that. But Greg Popovich inspired me. I was inspired because I lost my dad to gun violence.
Well, the conversation ended with Kerr asking Altman how AI could help the Warriors.
I was wondering how much longer it was going to be until we had an AI that could, watch every game, simulate a bunch of strategies, and say, here's the next thing, here's what you should do.
My takeaway is that this city is on the rise, and it's thanks to people like Coach Kerr and like Sam Altman.
I think for me, I'm not in the tech industry, so it's interesting to hear from someone so important in that realm.
Well, during the talk, a man who claimed to have a subpoena for Altman jumped on stage with the duo. Security quickly escorted him from the stage as the crowd booed. The two also touched on the city's great wealth gap here and using money for good. Kerr said the economy feels slanted against the younger generation, making it tougher to buy homes today. Altman emphasized the need to build more affordable housing. Dave?
All right, Andre, thank you. Time now, 7:15. We got to get back to Sal. A lot of different things happening in the morning commute. What's happening now?
Yeah, there's a lot. You're right, Dave and Garcia. Let's go to the East Bay first. Highway 4 does not have a crash, but there's a crash just off Highway 4 that's slowing people down because there's a spot there where you can see the frontage road, and that is backing up traffic from Somersville all the way to the Willow Pass grade. 80 is moderate, and so is the approach to the Richmond Bridge. I do want to mention that the Bay Bridge is backed up beyond the maze. We had an okay look at the San Mateo Bridge. The crash we had on 880 at Industrial has cleared, but it's still very slow through that area. And northbound 87 at the Almaden Expressway, we have a crash that is blocking all the lanes, or was blocking all the lanes. They've moved some cars through, but it's really slow there. 7:16. Let's bring Steve back with today's weather.
Sal, thank you. Not bad here. Well, I think we'll get mostly sunny and then some clouds later on. I mean, there's more clouds to the north here, but temperatures in the 50s. A little cooler, though, at Livermore, also Palo Alto, San Jose, but there's noticeable breaks here. The story going forward is going to be wind. High wind warning starts tonight. That's on the Marin Coast and Sonoma Coast in the red. Wind advisories are in the blue. Could get some gusts of over 60, 65 on the Marin, Sonoma Coast, maybe some of the higher elevations north. The first system is stalled out to the north. It's actually lifting more north. So south of that, we're getting mostly sunny skies. That's a whopper of a system, though, that's still developing. It will be here tomorrow. We'll get the wind late tonight, overnight into tomorrow. Then the rain will move through. Good news is it looks like it's progressive, does not look like it'll stall out, but there's still going to be some pretty hefty totals here. Tuesday afternoon clouds, although there's Tuesday morning sunshine here. Mostly sunny in the morning, breezy in the hills, clouds, rain well north, sun clouds, but kind of, I think, on the mild to warm side along the peninsula and also in the Santa Clara Valley, 60s and 70s today.
All right, Steve, thank you. Our time is now 7:17. New this morning, former Vice President Dick Cheney died at the age of 84.
He dominated politics in the early 2000s. As Fox's Brett Baer reports, the former vice president's time in the White House was marked by the Iraq War.
So help me God. Congratulations, Mr. President.
He was one of the most polarizing political figures in recent memory, a hero and patriot to conservatives, a villain to liberals. Serving under 4 different presidents, in his last job, Dick Cheney became arguably the most influential vice president in American history. He He was born in Lincoln, Nebraska, January of 1941, into a family of 5. After Cheney flunked out of Yale, as he would put it, he finished both a bachelor's and master's degree in political science at the University of Wyoming. But before he finished his doctorate at the University of Wisconsin, Cheney won a Capitol Hill Fellowship and headed to Washington with his new bride, Lynn Vincent, on his arm. It wasn't long before former Illinois Congressman Donald Rumsfeld would recruit Cheney to work in the Nixon administration. Cheney quickly rose in the ranks. Then at 34 years old, he became President Gerald Ford's chief of staff.
I watched him in summit meetings, during intense discussions in the cabinet room and the situation room, and throughout the exhausting, gallant effort of the 1976 campaign.
After serving as campaign manager for Ford's failed re-election bid, Cheney went home to Wyoming. He returned to Washington in 1978 as the representative from the Equality State, winning re-election 5 times. In 1989, Cheney was named Secretary of Defense by President George H.W. Bush. While Cheney essentially had no military experience and 5 draft deferments during Vietnam, it was Cheney who pushed hard for aggressive action against Iraq when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait in 1990.
When war came, America was ready. And Secretary Cheney's leadership contributed enormously to the victory.
Cheney left the White House in 1992 when Bill Clinton defeated President Bush, but he remained relevant as a Republican voice, choosing to stay in the private sector. Cheney nearly doubled revenues at energy heavyweight Halliburton as the company's CEO. Cheney resigned from Halliburton when he became the vice presidential candidate alongside George W. Bush in 2000. In one of the most arduous and complicated elections ever, Bush and Cheney defeated Al Gore and running mate Joe Lieberman when the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 5 weeks after the election to cease recounts in Florida.
We will always understand the pain of their families, and our nation will forever look with reverence upon this place where their lives ended.
Cheney's leadership was put to the test less than a year later, 9/11. The vice president was forced into the White House bunker, helping make the call to shoot down any aircraft deemed a threat in American airspace. Vice President Cheney was a key player in the White House's War on Terror campaign. In the prism of post-9/11 and after unheeded warnings to Iraq's leader Saddam Hussein, President Bush ordered the launch of Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003.
6 in 10 Americans say they feel it was a mistake to go to war. What do you say to those people?
We were elected to do a job and to do what we think is right for the country.
The Bush White House had asserted that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, a claim many of those officials would later retract when the weapons were never found. Bush and Cheney won re-election against Senators John Kerry and John Edwards. In 2005, Cheney found himself at the heart of the CIA leak scandal involving Operative Valerie Plame. His chief of staff, Scooter Libby, was charged with lying to FBI investigators in the investigation, of whom released Plame's name to a journalist as possible retribution for criticism of Iraq policy by Plame's ambassador husband. Vice President Cheney was never charged in connection with the leak, and 2 civil suits against him were dismissed. Cheney ended his second term as one of the least popular politicians in American history. By 2010, Dick Cheney had survived 5 heart attacks. In 2012, Cheney underwent a heart transplant. His doctor pronounced him healthy and gave him at least another decade to live. Cheney's daughter, Liz, continued the vice president's legacy in Congress, winning her father's old seat in 2017 and moving up the ranks of GOP leadership with her still influential father looking on. But after Liz's continued vocal criticism of President Donald Trump, the Republican Party closed ranks and she lost her re-election bid.
Lynn and I are so proud of Liz for standing up for the truth, doing what's right.
Dick Cheney was typecast as aloof and accused of being calculating and deceptive. Friends called him quietly funny and dry, but determined. Cheney helped lead the country through 3 wars and the worst attack on the U.S. homeland. In Washington, Brett Baer, Fox News.
Welcome back to Mornings on 2. As pretty as a postcard, looking live at the Pacific up here. A slight breeze, but look at those waves. Those are the main star of this live picture. Now, if you want to go out to the beach and you don't like rain, today's probably your best bet. We're going to bring in our meteorologist, Steve Paulson. He's been talking to us about a pretty big change that's coming tomorrow, and yes, it will affect Pacifica. San Francisco's Union Square ice skating rink is returning soon. It'll open tomorrow and will host events through January 19th. There will be Learn to Skate events with Kaiser Permanente on Saturdays and Sundays. There will also be Flashback Friday events where people can skate to the music of the 80s. Also classical music nights and silent events with headphones and much more.
Well, holiday magic is headed to San Francisco's waterfront as Pier 39 prepares to kick off the season. A 60-foot white fur weighing more than 6 tons is making its way from Burning Mountain in Shasta County. By tomorrow's sunrise, the crews will lift the giant tree into place at the entrance plaza, marking the beginning of the holiday season. It'll then be decked out with hundreds of ornaments and energy-efficient lights. Coffee, hot chocolate, and a lot of holiday cheer will be waiting at 6 a.m.
7:27 here. A 17-year-old is in custody accused of shooting a 9-year-old inside a smoke shop. What happened in the moments before the gunfire and why Antioch police say the shooter's target went unhurt.
Good morning. The polls here in California have been open for 30 minutes now. We're going to talk to a political expert about today's special election and the impact of Proposition 50 nationwide. And 2 people were found dead in Redwood City inside of a burning liquor store. The latest on what both investigators and neighbors are saying about the victims.
From KTVU Fox 2 News, this is Mornings on 2.
Well, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to Mornings on 2. I'm Dave Clark.
I'm Gassia Bikaelian. It's busy. November 4th.
Yeah.
It's Election Day. We cannot use the weather as an excuse, Steve Paulson. But thank goodness tomorrow's rain isn't happening today.
You could use it tomorrow,
Well,
but not today.
Okay.
You're absolutely right. It's mostly sunny out there. If you're north, there's clouds. If you're south, it's sunny. And even east, it's sunny. So mostly sunny here in the morning. A mix of sun and clouds. I think there'll be more sun. Then the wind will start to pick up this afternoon. That's going to be the first issue. You'll say, hey, man, it's getting a little windy out there by tonight. And that's because we have a wind advisory that's kicking in tonight along with a high wind warning. But 50s on the temps, sunny for most, unless a little bit in the city, but more clouds, Santa Rosa North, more sunshine, Livermore, Palo Alto, San Jose. The area in red, though, that's a high wind warning. That starts at 10 o'clock tonight, Marin Coast, Sonoma Coast. Otherwise, it's a wind advisory there in the blue, but we'll get some pretty good gusts here. The line is lifted north. There's been some rain. It's going to stay there, mainly northern Sonoma County, northern Napa County, more likely Lake and Mendocino County. But that's our system. Now it's going to slow down. There's multiple waves forming on it, which will slow it down. But that'll crank up the wind late tonight and drive rain through tomorrow. Be some pretty good totals. Marin County, San Pablo Bay, Vallejo North is the line I'm drawing. 60s, 70s on the temps. All right, south here. Oh, my gosh. I think we have 2 or 3 places we could go with, but we'll begin with
the East Bay.
I've heard of it.
Start there. The East Bay, you've heard of Highway 4 too, Steve.
I have. I've been on it.
Yes, you have. And well, Highway 4 is a little slower than usual because of some earlier issues on the frontage road, not on Highway 4, but it was slowing traffic. Richmond Bridge does look like it's slow, at least from the Castro exit. And the Bay Bridge is backed up now to the bays. And I like what I see here. Mostly the traffic is getting better. I can tell just by how fast it's going. Instead of going at 5 miles an hour, it looks like it's maybe 20, 25. Southbound 880 is slow. Earlier crashes. 680, the same thing. And then the South Bay, we still have that crash on 87 coming up on Albinon Expressway. The South Bay is getting filled in. 7:32. Let's go back to the desk.
All right, Sal, thank you. Well, as the government shutdown continues this morning, we now know that SNAP benefits or food stamps will be partially funded during November after federal judges ruled that program has to keep running. KTVU's Amanda Quintana is at the Alameda County Community Food Bank, and you have more information. Good morning, Amanda.
Good morning. Yes, so there's a lot happening here this morning. You've got the trucks behind me that are loading up with boxes and boxes of fresh food, and those are going out to some of the community partners that they work with, places like churches, food banks, schools, even all over Alameda County. And then they just opened up here at 7:30, so some of the leaders of those organizations are here getting food to bring back to their churches, community centers, to help people. One woman I just spoke to said, you know, they need to grab extra. They know that there is an extra need. So SNAP, which usually costs the U.S. about $9 billion a month, now the government says it's using $4.5 billion of contingency funds for November. So that means it's only going to cover about half of SNAP payments, and that's leaving food banks, organizations like the ones that are coming in here trying to fill that gap. I'm told, though, by food bank leaders that it's nearly an impossible feat. They simply don't have the infrastructure or finances to feed all of the people that might be heading to a food bank for the first time. They're getting thousands of calls from anxious families trying to put food on the table. Now, in the 9 Bay Area counties, more than 500,000 people rely on SNAP benefits, also known as CalFresh, here in California. Food banks, they need more volunteers, and they are just simply running out of food.
We are bringing in about twice as much food as we typically have been. We are adding pop-up distributions, looking at increasing our home delivery.
Many of them are running out of food within hours of opening up. And so right now we're seeing what we're calling a food crisis. On an average month, we get about 6,000 or 10,000 visits to our website. This past week, we got about 36,000.
Federal judges ruled on Friday that the Trump administration must fund SNAP during the government shutdown, at least partially. The average benefit is usually about $190 a month. This month, the recipients will likely get about half of that, but there are still a lot of unanswered questions. It's unclear when people will receive their payments. It could take days or even weeks for the money to be loaded onto their debit cards. And we don't know yet how the payments will be divvied up. Will everyone get half of their normal payment, or will some people, like children and the elderly, be prioritized? And then what happens when the government reopens? Will people then get their full November payments? There's just a lot that has not been answered yet. What we do know is that these food banks are really having to work overtime. People are really coming together. Different organizations are donating. The leaders of these organizations are just trying to get food to the people they know that need it. Live in Oakland, Amanda Quintana, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Amanda, thank you. Now to new details about a weekend shooting that left a 9-year-old boy inside an Antioch smoke shop injured by gunfire. This happened Sunday afternoon on Sunset Drive. Police say a 17-year-old boy was inside the store and got into a heated argument with another customer. Officials say the 17-year-old pulled out a gun and began firing.
The 9-year-old was sitting in an office in the back of the building and was struck by gunfire. He was a innocent bystander. It's unfortunate that it happened, and he had nothing to do with the incident.
Police say the intended target was never hit. The 9-year-old was struck in the neck, went through surgery, and is now in critical condition. The suspected shooter surrendered a few hours later and is being held at Contra Costa County Juvenile Hall in Martinez. Happening today, arraignment for a 19-year-old San Francisco man facing multiple felony charges in connection to the sexual battery of a young girl in Golden Gate Park. The DA's office says October 23rd, Dominic Valle Butrago attacked a young soccer player in a bathroom near the polo field. He was arrested Thursday. Prosecutors are moving to have him detained without bail pending trial, calling him a public safety risk.
Our time now 7:37. Fire investigators in Redwood City trying to determine the cause of a devastating early morning fire at a liquor store. Now, inside that burned building, firefighters made a tragic discovery: the bodies of 2 deceased people. Authorities say the victims were badly burned, and friends fear they may be the 2 men who worked at the store and are unaccounted for.
It's very devastating to see that, prayers to the family, but you don't see 2 deceased bodies at a liquor store on a Monday morning. It just doesn't happen.
I was hoping that it wasn't them, and I was hoping that it wasn't anyone else, of course. So, when I heard, I was just hoping that it wasn't any of the people that I knew.
Now, the neighbors described the people who ran the store as beloved members of the community.
A protest is scheduled in San Francisco tomorrow in response to a new RV parking ban that went into effect over the weekend. Under the new rules, RVs parked on San Francisco streets for more than 2 hours can now be towed. San Francisco's Coalition on Homelessness is leading the demonstration, saying the ban will have a devastating impact on the hundreds of families who currently live in their RVs.
Our time now 7:38. Well, even though President Trump is not anywhere on the ballot today, he is a main figure in many political races. Here in California, Democrats are describing him as the villain in the Proposition 50 redistricting battle against Texas and other Republican-led states. He's also a central figure in the governor's races in New Jersey and Virginia, along with the New York City mayor's race. Joining us now to talk about today's election day around the country is Patrick Murphy. Patrick is the faculty director for the Urban and Public Affairs program at the University of San Francisco. Patrick, good morning.
Good morning, Dave.
Patrick, start off by telling us how President Trump is playing a role in all of these political races and propositions around the country.
Well, isn't it amazing, David? Here it is, an odd-numbered year, and we're talking about the election. Usually you and I would kind of just bypass this, maybe some tax measures on the ballot. But this year is different, as you say, and the presence of President Trump in the White House and his oversized presence in just about everything having to do with government. Now we have just about every race. It doesn't matter if it's ballot initiatives, local mayor, governors, everything has been, as it were, nationalized. It's become a referendum back and forth between sort of President Trump and an alternative, a different party. And as you suggested, we're seeing it in that handful of races that are really highly visible in the country.
And Patrick, I want to quickly get your opinion. Last night, President Trump endorsed someone in the New York mayor's race, Andrew Cuomo. What's your reaction?
And as we saw Cuomo try to sort of get out at least a little bit of distancing I believe Mamdani's campaign actually broke the news before Cuomo's did. It's a sign of just how bizarre things have gotten, where a long-standing Democratic Party, the Cuomo family has been an icon. And here President Trump is endorsing him. Why? Because he doesn't want to see Mamdani win.
Very interesting. All right, the polls are showing Proposition 50 will win decisively here in California. It counters the 5 seats Republicans will take from Democrats in Texas, but there are some other Republican states pushing for redistricting as well. So what would you say is the end game here? How's this all going to end up?
It's a absolutely crazy math game going on, which we haven't experienced before. Texas looks like they might have added 3 to 5 seats for Republicans. California looks like they will add 5 seats for Democrats. And as you say, we've got a bunch of other states in it. Indiana is talking about it. Ohio thinks it can pick up a couple. Meanwhile, the Dems are pushing hard on Maryland to get a seat or two, or squeeze one more out of Illinois. There is another element, though, and actually in a lot of ways, a story that you just did. Historically, the party in power, which is Republicans in the presidency, the House, and the Senate, gets punished in off-year elections. So we're going to have all this shuffling of seats, but there should be, with the economy doing as poorly as we expect it to be doing, things like people worried about food, a year from now, that may come home to roost with more votes for Democrats, even in seats that we didn't expect it to. Add it all up, I think your guess is still as good as mine. I think we'll be looking at a coin flip in terms of the House of Representatives.
Patrick, I know we're running out of time. I wanted to ask you about the death of Dick Cheney. We came in this morning, breaking news, and also about Nancy Pelosi and whether she will decide to retire. What do you think her political future is?
With regard to former Vice President Cheney, think about how he was the boogeyman. And now Donald Trump has vastly outpaced him in that for Democrats. Speaker Emeritus Pelosi is doing what she always does. She does what's appropriate. And so she isn't going to talk about it until after this Prop 50 election. I think given her willingness to say she's not going to talk about it until after the election, I think we're going to hear pretty quickly in the next few days as to what her plans are. I'm not making odds there.
I hear you. I'm glad you talked about it, though. And it's good to talk to you. Patrick Murphy, professor at USF, thank you for joining us here on Mornings on 2.
Thanks so much, Dave.
Thank you.
And as Prop 50 is the single issue on every single Californian's ballot, we want to hear from you about voter turnout.
So let's go over to Andre Sr. You have our viewer poll of the day.
Dave Gossett, good morning to you both. We're asking this morning, are you voting in today's election? Here are your options. Yes, already voted. Yes, plan to. And no, not this time. And 100% of you say yes, already voted. Go to KTVU.com/vote. Let us know what you think.
All right. We got those ballots a long time ago in the mail.
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
As we go to break, we'll take one more look at that poll because we really want you to see it. And you can scan that QR code in the top right-hand corner of the screen. It'll take you to our poll.
7:47, some of this morning's top stories. Fremont is shutting down one of the city's largest homeless encampments for several months. The sweep means about 40 people living at the camp have to leave. The city says it's responding to complaints of nearby residents regarding unsanitary conditions. Advocates for people who are homeless say those who live there have nowhere to go. A pedestrian was hit and killed in San Jose yesterday afternoon. It happened around 5:15 last night, right around sunset. Police say the pedestrian was hit near South First and Martha Streets, but didn't give details on how the crash happened. The person died at the hospital, and they've yet to be identified. Stocks are headed much lower this morning in one sector in particular.
And Yum Brands announced it's reviewing strategic options for Pizza Hut. KTVU's Pam Cook is here with the details in dollars and cents.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Everybody seems to love pizza, but which pizza?
Yeah.
So Pizza Hut has been struggling against the competition. Executives say options could include a rebranding or outright sale of the business. Yum Brands also owns Taco Bell and KFC. No further details, but we'll be watching for that. As the bell rang this morning, all three indexes headed much lower. Looks like a bit of a correction this morning as analysts and investors expressed concerns about AI stock valuations, which have really seen a big surge, as we know, lately. The NASDAQ dropped about 350 points when that bell rang initially. By the way, Beta Technologies out of Vermont celebrating their IPO this morning. As we take a live look at the numbers, the NASDAQ has come back a little bit, still down 1 full percentage point, though, 239 points. The S&P 500 down more than 0.5%. There's a look at the Dow, down about 0.25% or 117 points or so. Bank of America's CEO is scheduled to come face-to-face with some of the bank's unhappy investors in Boston tomorrow. Brian Moynihan will host B of A's first investor day since 2014 due to pressure from his board members. It comes during a bad year for Bank of America's stock. Moynihan will likely have to explain to shareholders why the bank's stock was the worst performer on Wall Street among the nation's 6 largest banks. Coca-Cola released a new limited edition flavor for the holidays. The company says the creamy vanilla flavor blends original Coke with smooth, creamy vanilla. Take a look at the can and the bottle. It's available in regular and zero sugar versions. Coca-Cola has not released a holiday edition since the limited cinnamon Coke flavor 5 years ago. Some fans say it is creamier than the normal vanilla Coke and is thicker than the orange cream zero sugar Coke. I'm Pam Cook. That's a look at your dollars and cents.
Pam, thank you. People magazine has named this year's sexiest man alive, and it is actor Jonathan Bailey, who plays Fiyero in Wicked and was also in Bridgerton, of course. Bailey responded to the news by saying he was flattered and called it absurd. He is the first openly gay actor to receive the title. The first sexiest man alive was Mel Gibson back in 1985.
Long time ago. All right, time is 7:50. Sal, you've been busy all morning. What are you watching right now in our commute?
Now, we just got a new crash a few minutes ago, westbound 37 at Skaggs Island. And one of the things that I noticed is that there's a slowdown, even though the icon hasn't popped up. It's right, oh, there it popped up right when we were on the air. So that's where the icon popped up. I think it's probably right over here based on the slow traffic pattern. Nevertheless, if you're driving from Vallejo to Novato, this is something you should put on your radar. Speaking of Novato, southbound 101 at Roland Boulevard, there's a crash there. It had not been slow. The slowdown was after, but now we might get a slowdown before Roland. Richmond Bridge improving. This has really been a tale of an improving commute ever since they added the extra shoulder. And this is a look at the Bay Bridge. It's backed up to the maze. 7:51. Let's bring Steve back with today's weather.
All right, Sal, 2 forecasts. If you're north, it's clouds. If you're east and south, it's sunny and it'll be nice. And I think it'll be that way most of the day. The system on the north coast is lifting northward as the other system, the stronger system, deepens. And we have lots of sunshine here. But if you're north, some clouds. Otherwise, it looks good. 50s on the temp. City's been stuck kind of 57, 58 all morning. The message here going forward tonight, high wind warning. Marin Coast, Sonoma Coast, that's in the red, and then a wind advisory in the blue. So this system is going to be a double whammy here, wind and rain. Now, again, the system, though, if North Bay, you get the clouds, probably northern Sonoma County, Napa County north for any rain. I mean, it's up in Mendocino County, but it's even lifting a little bit more north. That's the big system. I mean, there's a couple. All right, there's a distinctive wave forming on that. That is right there, right? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Right there. That's a change of wind direction on the front. That'll slow it down, but it'll also enhance it. And boy, that'll really crank up the wind. So we'll have a double barrel low is what we call that as that begins to move in. This is going to be a cold front. I call it that. I refuse to say AR. South, not much. North, could be a lot. The line is no doubt about it, drawn around the Golden Gate Bridge, San Pablo Bay, Vallejo North. And that looks to be 1 to 2 inches there, lesser amount south. But I think Santa Cruz Mountains could sneak in some decent totals as well by the time we get to Thursday morning. 60s, 70s on the temps, kind of mild. Breeze picks up. Santa Clara Valley and Peninsula look pretty mild today.
All right, our time is 7:52. A civil rights law is now being used to target diversity programs. Up next at 8, the California University becoming the first to end scholarships for black students. And for the 49ers, the worst fears realized. Another top defensive player is out for the rest of the year. What the team and the fans are hoping for on this NFL trade deadline day. Welcome back to Mornings on 2. Time now 7:55. Another blow suffered by the 49ers defense. Head coach Kyle Shanahan confirmed rookie defensive end Mykel Williams will miss the rest of the season. He tore his right ACL in his leg. It happened in Sunday's game against the New York Giants with 4 minutes left in the victory over the Giants. Right there. Williams, who was the 11th overall pick in the last draft, has started every game this season. He's been effective for the 49ers, particularly against the run. Head coach Kyle Shanahan was looking forward to seeing all aspects of his game continue to evolve. Well, the NFL trade deadline is today. Several high-profile players may still be on the move with just hours left. One of the biggest names still dominating the rumor mill, a Bengals defensive end Trey Hendrickson. The all-pro pass rusher, still a coveted player for playoff contenders, desperate for a late-season defensive boost. The 49ers have been heavily linked to Hendrickson. They're trying to replace their injury-depleted defensive line, hoping for a possible playoff run. All 32 teams have to have deals officially submitted by the afternoon deadline. Time is 7:57. We know that the official Bay Area venues for Super Bowl 60 festivities, we know what they'll be now. The NFL and the Bay Area Host Committee announced those locations. Of course, Levi's Stadium will host the Super Bowl itself on February 8th. Super Bowl opening night, where fans are invited to celebrate with both teams as they arrive in the Bay Area, that'll be at San Jose Convention Center. The Super Bowl fan experience, as well as the Pro Bowl flag football game, that'll take place in San Francisco at Moscone Center. And the NFL honors ceremony, that will take place at the Palace of the Fine Arts.
We're heading into the innovation capital of the world. The world and the change that happens in the world is usually born and bred in the Bay. And so our job is to really translate that into the experience fans will see and experience and what players will see.
Now, Super Bowl 60 events will start Monday, February 2nd. They will continue until Super Bowl Sunday. Well, a documentary about a famed labor leader, Dolores Huerta, had a special screening last night in San Mateo. The award-winning film is called Dolores. It was followed by a conversation with the 95-year-old union organizer. It tells the story of Dolores Huerta as co-founder of the United Farm Workers, which led to the first farm worker labor contracts. She told us the fight for workers' rights and immigrant rights is just as urgent as it was back in the 1960s.
And the way that they were treated, assaulted, beaten, arrested, and then killed. And that's what we're seeing is happening right now. But it wasn't at the wholesale level. What we are seeing right now, where innocent people are being kidnapped and being terrorized. And we hope that we will never, ever see this again.
And Dolores Huerta also said the tax dollars should be going toward housing, education, and health care, not to intimidate and detain undocumented people.
Well, he once stood at the center of Republican power, but in his final years, Dick Cheney turned against the current party's leader. As America reflects on the former vice president's death, we explore what his final act says about the state of our politics. Then top California Democrats throwing their weight behind Prop 50. We're live with the support and opposition to a big decision voters are being asked to decide. And then,
how can AI help the Warriors?
Well, two of San Francisco's biggest leaders, one in sports, the other in tech, finding common ground. We take you inside their conversation about leadership and innovation.
From KTVU Fox 2 News, this is Mornings on 2.
Welcome to Mornings on 2 at 8 live across the San Francisco Bay this morning. We know that there is a system churning off the coast, and it's going to bring us weather later this week, but we're going to find out what is in store for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Andre Sr.
Good morning. I'm Garcia Michaelian. Tuesday, November 4th, Election Day. Sunshine, blue skies behind us along the Oakland estuary. Steve Paulson, it'll be a different picture tomorrow this time, right?
There'll be white caps probably out there behind you guys tomorrow at this time is the way it looks. But today there's two forecasts. If you're north, it's clouds. If you're south, it's sun. And if you're east, it's sun. So mostly sunny. I'm just kind of splitting the difference. Sun and clouds. The wind will pick up later this afternoon tonight. Might be a little later than 4 o'clock, but it's a sign of things to come here. But it looks pretty mild. I think Santa Clara Valley and along the peninsula, you get that south-southeast breeze. It can be pretty warm in advance of the front. So 50s on the temps here. Mostly cloudy north, sunny south and east, as we talked about here. But the wind will be the first big story, then the rain coming in tomorrow. High wind warning on the Marin Coast and Sonoma Coast. I mean, you could get 65 plus on some of these gusts. Wind advisory in the blue. That covers just about everybody else. Now, the system's on the north coast, but it's staying there. It's stuck. It can't really move, but it will from that developing system coming out of the Gulf of Alaska. That's pretty impressive for early November, no doubt. So wind starts tonight into tomorrow, then rain tomorrow. Without question, the heaviest amounts will be Marin County, San Pablo Bay North is the way it looks to me. Temperatures, though, near average to above, especially Livermore, Palo Alto, and San Jose. All right, Sal's here. Man, I could tell at 4:30 this morning there was a lot of traffic out there, and
there's a lot of traffic out there. You're absolutely right. Let's go to Highway 37. They're clearing a crash at Skaggs Island. Fortunately, it happened later rather than earlier in the commute. Southbound 101 at Roland, there's a crash. Southbound 101 at Millbrae Avenue, there's a new crash on the way to the airport or in that area. And I just got a text from a friend who said the San Mateo Bridge, he says it's awful. It doesn't look that great to me. The Bay Bridge is backed up to the Maze. 8:02, let's go back to the desk.
Well, new this morning, former Vice President Dick Cheney has died. A statement from his family said the former Vice President died due to complications of pneumonia and cardiac and vascular disease. Cheney was Vice President from 2001 to 2009 during the George W. Bush administration. The Republican was likely being remembered now as the architect of the Iraq War and the War on Terror. Cheney was 84 years old, and in just a few minutes, we bring you a live expert analysis on Cheney's political endorsements that startled Americans of both parties.
On this election day, voters in California are deciding the fate of Proposition 50, which seeks to redraw our state's congressional maps to flip 5 seats in the House of Representatives in favor of Democrats.
KTVU's James Torres live in Redwood City, where the polls opened just about an hour ago. James?
Good morning to you both. Well, by all accounts and most experts and polls that we have seen, Prop 50 is expected to pass later tonight, though Democrats campaigning for the measure are doing everything they can to guarantee that happens. According to state data, about 24 million people are expected to, or rather eligible to vote for this election. More than 6 million have already returned a ballot. A Democrat delegation from the House spent the day in San Francisco alongside Governor Gavin Newsom, led by Representative Nancy Pelosi. It included Representatives Kevin Mullen, Zoe Lofgren, Latifah Simon, and Eric Swalwell. Together, they all told reporters this proposition is in direct response to Texas redrawing its district mid-decade to benefit Republicans during next year's midterm elections, adding California doesn't want to be involved in this kind of practice, but needs to.
If Texas withdraws what it's doing, we won't have to go down this path. We are committed to commission redistricting. We don't like having to do a redistricting mid-decade. That's just not normal. But it's normal for the Republicans because they did it in Texas.
They did it in North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Those voting against Prop 50 say it takes independent redistricting power away from voters and offers too much power to elected officials. Republican Representative Kevin Kiley posted on X a snippet of an interview he did with Fox Local Live Now. His district would be affected by Prop 50, and he argues, despite the language saying the measure is temporary, he finds that hard to believe.
This does pass. It would be very difficult for California to return to a system of fair representation. And so that temporary word, I think, is very misleading at the very least.
States like Virginia and Illinois are also looking at plans to redraw maps to help Democrats, whereas Missouri, Ohio, and Indiana are the latest to consider what to do to help Republicans. Later this morning here in the Bay Area, San Mateo County leaders will lead a Yes to Prop 50 rally as voters continue to return their ballots. Polls tonight close at 8 o'clock. We're live this morning in Redwood City. I'm James Torres, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Well, this morning we're asking, are you voting in today's election? Your options: yes, already voted, yes, plan to, or no, not this time. 87% of you say yes, you've already voted, 11% of you say you plan to, and 2% of you say not this time. Scan the QR code in the top right-hand corner of your screen and go to ktv.com/vote. Let us know what you think. 2 East Bay lawmakers say federal agents may try to intimidate California voters on this election day. The Trump administration say they've sent them to California to ensure ballot security and to ensure the state is following federal election laws. But Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell and Mark DeSaulnier say they could have a major impact on the outcome of today's special election. They say they've received reports of increased federal immigration activity in their districts in recent days and that ICE agents have been spotted in their polling places. They're denouncing the Trump administration's actions as election interference.
The California Supreme Court declined to overturn a ruling saying the University of California has to consider undocumented students for campus jobs. A lower court previously ruled the UC policy blocking those students from jobs on campus was discriminatory. Leaders at the university system say they're worried about federal grant suspensions and other retaliatory attacks from the Trump administration after it accused them of violating federal law. UC is already fighting a proposed $1 billion fine stemming from allegations of anti-Semitism at UCLA.
A scholarship for black students at the University of California, San Diego has been open to all races after a successful legal challenge citing a Civil War-era law. A nonprofit and student filed a lawsuit arguing the race-exclusive Black Alumni Scholarship Fund violated the Equal Protection Clause. The core of their claim rested on the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871, alleging the university conspired with a private foundation to conduct racial discrimination.
Two of San Francisco's biggest names in sports and tech, Warriors head coach Steve Kerr and OpenAI Sam Altman, shared a stage last night.
They covered a wide range of topics, including AI fears and the future of San Francisco. Altman addressed concerns about AI's risks, including ethics and job losses, saying he believes the technology has done more good than bad. The crowd also applauded Kerr's activism on social issues, including gun reform. Both expressed wanting to tackle challenges like inequity and affordability.
I don't think we'll look back in a few decades and say AI was a pure force for good. We're happy with everything that AI brought into the world. I think we will say it was a big net good, like a huge net good, in the way that if we look at previous technological revolutions, we're not happy with, most of us are not happy with everything.
I realized, after my first year or two here that I had quite a platform, and I probably should use it for something good. There have been times in the sports world where athletes and coaches took on a pretty big role. More athletes than coaches. There weren't a lot of coaches that really kind of did that. But Greg Popovich inspired me. I was inspired because I lost my dad to gun violence.
Well, during the talk, a man who claimed to have a subpoena for Altman jumped on stage with the duo. Security quickly escorted him from the stage as the crowd booed.
It's almost 8:09 here, and we have another new crash, this time in the East Bay, eastbound 580 at Park. The problem with that is, even though eastbound 580 is non-commute, westbound 580, you can take a good look at that, and it's slowing traffic from at least Highway 13, maybe longer than that, heading over toward the Lakeshore Curve. We also have a big backup at the Bay Bridge from the Maze, and southbound 101 at Millbrae, there's a crash. If you're going to the airport, the backup begins in San Bruno at 380. Don't miss your flight or be late. And the San Mateo Bridge is not great. It's because of a crash. Let me go back to this map. It's because of a crash at Foster City Boulevard westbound. No injuries, it's on the shoulder, but people have been slowing to take a look. We're finally seeing a little improvement here. 8:09, let's go back to the desk.
Well, one of the former vice presidents, Dick Cheney, his final political act may have been his most surprising here, how his rebuke of President Trump could impact his legacy.
A major Tesla investor drawing the line, why it says Elon Musk is doing a good job but shouldn't receive a proposed stratospheric pay package.
Jacoby & Myers has been a proud part of the California community since 1972. We've stood by our neighbors, helping hundreds of thousands of families get the justice they deserve. Whether it's fighting insurance companies or fighting for you in court, we'll stand up for you. At Jacoby & Myers, we know the stakes, your family, your health, your future. For over 50 years, we've been California's trusted name in legal care. If you've been injured, call us today at 1-800-5-MILLION, because you deserve justice.
Well, time now is 8:13. This morning, we're looking at the passing of Dick Cheney, former U.S. Vice President, longtime Republican power broker, and what his final political act says about the state of our politics. In his final public stance, Cheney announced he would vote for Kamala Harris in 2024, denounced his party's nominee Donald Trump as unfit and a threat to American democracy, and urged Americans to put country above partisanship. Joining us is Peter Loge, director of the School of Media and Public Affairs at the George Washington University. Peter, thank you for joining us this morning.
As always, thanks for having me on.
All right, Peter, I wanted to know, what last time anyone saw Dick Cheney was him in that commercial endorsing Kamala Harris in the 2024 election. Do you think that will be the lasting memory that people have of him?
It'll be one of the lasting memories. When we eulogize politicians, we're often talking about a politics that we wish we had or are nostalgic for. And in this case, I think the story we're telling about the late vice president is about a politics of purpose, a politics of principle rather than a politics of grievance, which a lot of contemporary politics seems to be about.
So do you think this changes some of his, policies and pushes when he was vice president, including the push into the Iraq War, the U.S. Patriot Act? How do you think that counterbalanced with those two things?
That's a really good question. Some on the left will certainly say stop praising the late vice president because of his role in the Iraq War, his role as vice president, and also in senior positions in the U.S. government. A lot of others are going to look back at the passing of the vice president and say we're losing a lot of politics that we used to have, right? A politics that was more honorable, that was rough and tumble, but wasn't, destructive at its core. So I think the late vice president is going to begin to stand in for a nostalgia for a politics that was really a bunch of patriots fighting hard for what they believed in, rather than the moment we seem to be in.
So, but is this, his push for Kamala Harris, for you to vote for him? He wanted people to vote for Kamala Harris instead of President Trump. Is that push in that direction sort of old school when we talk about the current state of politics now?
In many ways, it really is. It's difficult to imagine a serious national Republican figure endorsing a Democrat at any level and surviving politically. His daughter, former Representative Liz Cheney, comes to mind in this regard, where partisanship, the jersey you're wearing, red or blue, matters more than a set of principles for which you stand. And I think a lot of Americans would like to get back to a point where principles mattered more than what team you're on. And yet we all say that and then go out and vote for our team, regardless of the principles at stake.
So the nostalgia you mentioned earlier is a nostalgia of, oh, this was good back then, not necessarily. Do you think it could be used as a force into where we could be again in the future?
One hopes that somebody picks up the mantle of the Cheney family. And this is a family that devoted itself to public service. If a Republican say you want to go back to Republican principles of family, of country, of honor, the former vice president actually spent most of his career in the background. It's only later in life that he stepped in front of the microphone as much as he did. And some Democrats might say we want to return to a time when Republicans cared more about principles, and were also willing to change their mind. The vice president changed his mind on marriage equality, for example, in part because one of his daughters is lesbian, and he said, you know what, everybody's freedom. Freedom means freedom for everybody. Came out for marriage equality. Former Representative Cheney said she changed her mind to marriage equality in part because of her family experience. And it's hard to imagine a politician of either party changing their mind publicly on such an important issue. And I think Americans would like us to get back to a point where that's more the norm than the exception.
Where you can debate and try to convince each other during debate, this might be the way to go.
And also change your mind, not
right.
just convince, but say, you know what, you're right.
Yeah, right. It seems like a very, historic thing right now. Very far away when you think about it in the current times that we live in. Professor Peter Loge at the George Washington University, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you as always.
One of Tesla's biggest investors announced today it's voting against a proposed pay package for CEO Elon Musk. The proposal could pay Musk as much as $1 trillion over the next 10 years. Norway's Sovereign Wealth Fund, the company that runs Norway's oil and gas companies, praised Musk's leadership, but said $1 trillion is simply too much money. The investor vote on Musk's pay package is scheduled for Thursday.
It's 8:18 that we have a crash on 580 I want to talk about again. It's eastbound 580 at Park, but westbound 580 is slow. If I back it off a little bit here and I show you the general East Bay commute, it's pretty slow getting into Oakland, it's pretty slow driving to Fremont, and it's slow on both the San Mateo and the Dumbarton bridges. It's go to the Bay Bridge, it's backed up before the Maze, and we haven't forgotten about the South Bay. That South Bay commute is jam-packed, although most of the crashes have been cleared, but still a bunch of slow traffic. So Tuesdays tend to be a pretty busy day. 8:18. Now let's talk about the weather. Tomorrow, so tonight I should go to bed early because tomorrow morning we're going to have one of those commutes, right?
I would, Sal, at least by 11 o'clock tonight, yes.
Okay, yeah.
All right, mostly sunny here unless you're north. East and south, it's already sunny. Throughout the day, clouds will slowly start to move in, but this looks like more north as far as clouds and sun south. But the breeze will pick up a little bit later today. Speaking of, there it is there. 50s on the temps. I think we'll start to get some 60s here. This looks like a pretty mild pattern today, especially if you can get that southeast breeze. But rainfall tomorrow and wind. Wind might be a bigger story for some. 1/4 inch to 2.5 should cover it, most of that Marin County north. But the wind gusts 40 to 60. Could be Bay Area wide, especially on the coast, Marin coast up to Sonoma coast. Snow level will start off really high, 8,000, but I think by 6,500 feet, it'll get there by Wednesday night. Not a lot, but a little bit. But the wind advisories, in the blue is the wind advisory, starts at 10 p.m. tonight, goes through 4 p.m. Wednesday. In the red, parts of Marin County and along the Sonoma coast, that could be 65 plus miles per hour. And yes, maybe even in the city, we could get some gusts over 50, but we'll fine tune that tomorrow morning to see how this is developing, but it sure looks like it. Everything today will stay north. That system is stalled out. It has no place to go. It needs that next system, and boy, that's really wrapping itself up. That's your system for tomorrow. That'll be the kicker. They'll merge together, then blast through. Tomorrow looks like a rain and wind day, heaviest by far. Looks like Golden Gate Bridge, San Pablo Bay, Vallejo north. Doesn't mean areas south can't get some, but there should be some pretty good totals to the north. After the Wednesday system, we should get a break until around next Tuesday or Wednesday. There's projections of some pretty active systems here in the old weather pipeline here over the next, I'd say, 10 to 16 days. Half and half forecast. If you're south, it's sunny. If you're north, it's partly to mostly cloudy. The rain line is well north, but we'll see the wind picking up later today. Highs today, 60s to maybe even a few mid-70s, you guys.
Steve, thank you. The auto loan industry being hit hard by fraud. The tricks scammers are using to target lenders.
Well, it's closer to winter than summer, but we were already thinking about next year's zip trips. And this year we're doing something different. Instead of us picking the cities, we want to hear from you. Tell us why your hometown should be our next zip trip destination. Just scan the QR code and record a video and send a few photos telling us all about your city, and we could choose it for next year's Zip Trip lineup. We'll be right back. 824 now. The popular tech stocks, they are taking the markets down this morning.
However, two Bay Area companies announced good news today. Pam Cook is upstairs with that in dollars and cents.
Bay Area companies always busy, depending on the day. Uber's third quarter revenue came in better than expected. From analysts, reports the largest increase ever in the number of trips. Uber reports 3.5 billion trips for the quarter. San Francisco-based company there. As the opening bell rang this morning, Yum Brands announced it is reviewing strategy options for Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut struggled against competition. Executives talking about that. We're looking at Instacart, though. That is the other San Francisco company making news this morning, announcing some AI tools in partnership with companies like OpenAI, Microsoft, and Google. The platform will use AI to offer a cart assistant to help with meal planning, budgeting, and product recommendations. It's also going to provide real-time looks into store shelves to keep more products at stock at all times. Sprouts and Kroger stores will be the first to use those new tools. All right, heading to a live look at the big board. The numbers all dropped this morning, all three indexes. A little bit of a correction. Investors and analysts have expressed concerns about the valuation of those AI stocks, which, as we've seen, have really rallied quite a bit lately. There's a live look at the Dow Jones, down close to 200 points. Close to 0.5%. The Nasdaq still down about 300 points, 1 1/3% now, and the S&P 500 down 0.75%. A recent analysis found losses from auto loan fraud are dramatically higher compared to other consumer credit products. According to a TransUnion study, the average loss from auto loan fraud was 21 times greater than the average credit card fraud case and 6 times higher than unsecured personal loans. Researchers say that is mainly due to auto loans typically being larger in size. Driverless car service coming to more U.S. cities. Waymo announced it plans to launch its robo-taxis in Detroit, Las Vegas, and San Diego next year. The announcement comes after the Alphabet-owned company's CEO said last week she expects the company to offer 1 million trips per week by the end of 2026. Waymo currently offers robotaxi service in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Phoenix, Atlanta, and Austin. I'm Pam Cook. That's a look at your dollars and cents.
Pam, thank you. An emotional reunion for a family and its lost dog. How a Bay Area drone operator played a key role in its return.
Fremont taking a step forward in clearing out a homeless encampment, how the city's helping those who don't have anywhere else to call home, and why some say it is not enough.
We're just trying to get whatever we can to make ends meet for the rest of the month.
The federal government says it'll pay half the food aid benefits millions of Americans are counting on. How soon that money could show up and be allocated, and what local food banks are doing to fill the growing need. Then on this election day, how political watchers say the single statewide issue is about more than redistricting. A Prop 50 pits Governor Newsom against President Trump, and whether the outcome could affect the governor's political future after he leaves the top seat in California.
From KTVU Fox 2 News, this is Mornings on 2.
Good morning and welcome back. I'm Gaskia Mikhaelian.
I'm Andre Sr. Today is Tuesday, November 4th, and the sun is out today. But things are going to be changing this week. Let's get things over to Steve Paulson, who's tracking it all for us. Hey, Steve.
Good morning, you two. Two forecasts here today. One north, clouds. One south and east, mostly sunny. So we're kind of splitting the difference here. If you're south, it's all sunshine and maybe even mild to warm today. North, there's been a lot of cloud cover and even some rain, especially well north, up to Lake County and up into Mendocino County. It looks like it'll stay there through today. The wind will pick up later this afternoon and especially tonight. But, I mean, if you're south, it's good to go here. Lots of sunshine. I think this is a pretty mild to warm pattern for Santa Clara Valley and also for along the peninsula. You could get some mid-70s out of this when that southeast wind comes in advance of a front. Wind advisory in blue starts tonight at 10 o'clock. A high wind warning. Marin Coast and Sonoma Coast could be gusts over 65 miles per hour. You can see the line. It's staying there. So about Marin County north, it's a lot of clouds. East and south, it's mostly sunny. Fog is trying to race up the coast. That's a big system there. It'll be with us tomorrow for not only wind, but also rain. Heaviest amounts without a doubt. Look to be about the Golden Gate Bridge, San Pablo Bay, Vallejo North. Looks to be the line to me. Doesn't mean areas east and south won't get rain, but the heaviest amounts will be Marin County North. Half and half forecast day. If you're south and east, looks pretty good. If you're north, well, you get clouds, and if you're far enough north, you'll get some rain. But for us, 60s, 70s on the temps. All right, 8:31. The Dumbo and the San Mateo have issues?
Yes, and we also do have a big crash on 37 that got worse. They had to shut the freeway down and land an air helicopter, a paramedic unit, to take somebody away, and they had to block both sides of the freeway to do it on 37 near Skaggs Island. So now we're solid from Vallejo heading west, and eastbound's also slow. Motorcycle went over the embankment. Someone was seriously injured. We've got to go back to the East Bay, 580 eastbound at MacArthur. Slow traffic, a couple of lanes blocked. Southbound 880 at 29th, a couple of lanes blocked there. So Oakland's kind of taking it on the chin. Bay Bridge is backed up to the maze. 832. Let's go back to the desk.
Thank you, Sal. As the government shutdown continues here, we now know SNAP or food benefits will be partially funded through November after federal judges ruled the program must keep running.
KTVU's Amanda Quintana is at the Alameda County Community Food Bank with more. Amanda.
Good morning. Well, there is a lot happening here. So this is where boxes and boxes of food get loaded up. They're going into these big trucks that are heading out. And then also agencies like churches, local food banks, community centers, they can come here to grocery shop essentially for their community and bring that food back to the low-income families that they serve, those families that are going to be needing extra help this month, especially now that that November 1st SNAP payment was not sent out, and they really aren't sure if they're going to get any benefits and when. So that's leaving food banks like this one trying to fill the gap. I'm told by food bank leaders, though, that it's nearly an impossible feat. They simply do not have the infrastructure or the finances to feed all of the people that might be heading to a food bank for the first time. They're getting thousands of calls from anxious families trying to put food on the table. Now, if you think about it, here are the numbers. In the 9 Bay Area counties, more than 500,000 people rely on SNAP benefits, also known as CalFresh here in California. So that is a lot of people that they are trying to help. Food banks need more volunteers, and they say they are running out of food.
The norm is that we give away on Fridays. Because of this situation, we're now going to 2 days per week, and we're using both agencies to distribute because the need is just that high. They're fearful. I hear fear. They don't know, false expectations appearing real. They don't know what to believe. They don't know when they're going to be able to feed their children. They're not sure.
Federal judges ruled on Friday that the Trump administration must fund SNAP
during the government shutdown, at least partially. SNAP usually costs the U.S. about $9 billion a month, but the government says now it's going to use $4.5 billion of contingency funds for the month of November, but that will only cover about half of SNAP payments. The average benefit that someone is getting is usually about $190 a month, but there are still a lot of unanswered questions. It's unclear when people will receive their payments. It could take days or even weeks for the money to be loaded onto their debit cards. We don't know yet how the payments will be divvied up as well. Will everyone get half of their normal payment, or will some people like children and the elderly be prioritized? And then what happens if the government reopens? Will people then get their full payments for November? There's still a lot of questions, but something that we know is that talking to these agencies, they are all saying they're getting more calls, they have more people coming to their distributions, they have more people that they need to help. They're trying to double up on groceries here, find ways to really stretch what they have, teach people, get beans and get rice. Here are ways that you can meal prep to make things last longer. So a lot of great people here in the community trying to help. Live in Oakland, Amanda Quinthon at KTVU Fox 2 News.
Amanda, thank you. Neither Governor Newsom nor President Trump are on Californians' ballots in today's elections, but Prop 50 is shaping up to be a California versus the White House battle. It seeks a redrawing of congressional districts in an effort to allow Democrats to take 5 seats and potentially control the House of Representatives from Republicans. Move is in response to similar measures in Texas and other states at the urging of President Trump. Let's get some insight on what happens beyond Prop 50 by turning, as we often do, to Andres Quintero, political science professor at San Jose's Evergreen Valley College. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning.
Good morning. You cannot watch TV. You cannot drive through some neighborhoods without seeing yes or no on Prop 50 signs and ads. Do you think people are voting for the proposition or their political party?
Yeah, I think that partisanship is really coming in. Although we've seen a move towards independent or not decline to state, this action by Texas is really firing up the partisanship, and so I think this is a response to that.
Governor Newsom said recently that he would consider running for president after the 26 midterms. If 50 passes, the governor's supporters are likely frame it as a major victory against President Trump. Do you think the governor is moving closer to running?
Very much so. We see him taking on these leadership roles, going out there, and actually previously we saw him kind of teeing it up when he was going on to these podcasts or places where he wouldn't have been seen before. And so clearly reaching out to those folks on the other side of the aisle, trying to make himself more appealable to the possibly the people that are at the center, I think is a good sign that he's very much interested in running.
So if we do have to look nationally here, we should note small donors from across the country gave Governor Newsom a combined $38 million for this Prop 50 measure. What does 50 do for the governor's national standing?
I think that was a brilliant strategy on his part. He didn't have the traditional support of those big spenders from California that have traditionally lent heavy amounts of support, which are still important for a presidential race. However, that massive pool of small dollar donors is incredibly powerful. It really sends a big message that your base is not just simply the big money, but regular people from throughout the country that have heard the message that recognize your leadership. So it was a brilliant tactic on his part.
The criticism against the governor has been that while Californians accept and support him, he's too California, if you will, for, Midwestern states, for other parts of the country. Do you think he's trying to soften his, California-ness in some effect?
Very much so. I think if you look back in history, we see Governor Moonbeams, all that type of stuff that has been leveled against California leaders. And so he's starting off early on. There's a long time, well, not necessarily long, but there's still a significant amount of time for him to start selling himself as the individual that can come from California yet still govern from the center.
Okay. What do you expect to see with Prop 50?
All the polls are showing that and some of them are as high as 60, and so yeah, more than likely should go through and give that significant amount of support to the Democrats here in California, and even more than they already have.
And what are you watching for after today's election?
I think that we'll see how if this moves forward, then we're going to have to see how the elections actually line up and actually come to effect, the candidates are going to have to sell themselves to a different group. And maybe the election itself might have some unintended consequences. Those are things that we're going to have to look at. Might wind up firing up the base of other sectors of the district that used to not be as active. So while the intention is for the Democrats to get more power through this change, we still have to look and see how these the unintended consequences.
All right, that's a conversation for tomorrow and after. We appreciate your time today, Professor Andres Quintero from San Jose's Evergreen Valley College. Thank you again.
No, thank you.
Another very closely watched race here is happening on the far other end of the country in New York City. Polls opened there just more than 3 hours ago in the nation's largest city. Democrat Zohran Mamdani, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, and Republican Curtis Sliwa are now making a last-minute push for voters. Both Mamdani and Cuomo cast their votes earlier this morning. Polls opened not quite 3 hours ago. Mamdani is a state assembly member, a virtual political unknown just 8 months ago. His progressive proposals, though, have put him at the forefront of the race for mayor. He's become something of a well-known politician there in New York and beyond. Last night, President Trump endorsed Andrew Cuomo for mayor and threatened to withhold federal funds from New York City if Mamdani wins.
When we think about how best to fight Donald Trump, one way we can do so is by understanding Andrew Cuomo for what he is, the candidate endorsed by Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Stephen Miller.
President Trump doesn't support me. He opposes Mamdani, right? He believes that Mamdani is an existential threat to New York. He believes he's a communist. He believes he'll bankrupt New York.
Mamdani beat Cuomo in the Democratic primary in June with 56% of the vote. Polls in New York close at 6 o'clock our time. We'll have updates on this and local races through the evening, live in our newscast on KTVU Fox 2 and the Fox local app.
At 8:41, a park in Fremont will be closed for the next few months as the city conducts a sweep of one of its largest homeless encampments. The sweep affecting some 40 people began yesterday morning at the encampment at Isherwood Park near the Quarry Lakes Regional Recreation Area. Crews began removing tents and cleaning up the parks and its waterways following complaints from neighbors about unsafe and unsanitary conditions. But some homeless advocates say the city is not doing enough to help those who are now forced to look for a new place to live.
Success for me is when people are not only inside, but have the safety of a home where they can lock their own door and they don't have to leave.
The city says it will be spending the next 2 weeks making sure everyone who lived at the Fremont Park will have a safe place to live. A spokesperson says the city has signed a contract with Mission Peak Lodge and other Fremont hotels to provide temporary housing. Well, developments out of Contra Costa County, what Antioch police say led to a 9-year-old boy getting shot in the neck.
Some top stories we're following at 8:45. The San Francisco representative, Nancy Pelosi, is expected to make an announcement after today's election on whether she'll seek re-election to the House. Pelosi was first elected to the role in 1987, served as Speaker of the House twice, the first woman to hold the gavel in the U.S. history.
The man widely regarded as the most powerful vice president in U.S. history has died. Dick Cheney was 84 years old. Family members say his death was due to complications from pneumonia and cardiac and vascular disease. Cheney served as vice president from 2001 to 2009 during the administration of George W. Bush. And Cheney became Bush's most influential Oval Office advisor, both in the Iraq War and the war on terrorism in the years immediately after 9/11.
Some on the left will certainly say stop praising the late vice president because of his role in the Iraq War, his role as vice president, and also in senior positions in the U.S. government. A lot of others are going to look back at the passing of the vice president and say we're losing a lot of politics that we used to have, right? A politics that was more honorable, that was rough and tumble, but wasn't, destructive at its core. So I think the late vice president is going to begin to stand in for a nostalgia for a politics that was really a bunch of patriots fighting hard for what they believed in.
Well, just last year, Cheney surprised Americans of both parties by announcing he would vote for Democrat Kamala Harris for president. At the same time, Cheney denounced her Republican opponent, President Trump, as unfit for the Oval Office and a threat to American democracy.
Now to new details about a weekend shooting that left a 9-year-old boy inside an Antioch smoke shop injured by gunfire. It happened Sunday afternoon on Sunset Drive. Police say a 17-year-old boy was inside the store and got into a heated argument with another customer. Officers say the 17-year-old pulled out a gun and began firing.
The 9-year-old was sitting in an office in the back of the building and was struck by gunfire. He was a innocent bystander. It's unfortunate that it happened, and he had nothing to do with the incident.
Police say the intended target was not hit. The 9-year-old was struck in the neck, went through surgery, and is in critical condition. The suspected shooter surrendered a few hours later and is being held at Contra Costa County Juvenile Hall in Martinez.
Investigators in Redwood City are trying to determine the cause of a fire at a liquor store that led to a disturbing discovery. Inside that burned building, firefighters found the bodies of 2 deceased people. Authorities say the victims were badly burned. Friends fear they may be the 2 men who worked at the store and are unaccounted for.
It's very devastating to see that, prayers to the family, but you don't see 2 deceased bodies at a liquor store on a Monday morning. It just doesn't happen.
I was hoping that it wasn't them, and I was hoping that it wasn't anyone else, of course. So, when I heard, I was just hoping that it wasn't any of the people that I knew.
Neighbors describe those who ran the store as beloved members of the community.
A dog that recently got lost in rural Sonoma County is now back with its family with the help of new technology. The dog named Crash went missing from a camping trailer in Petaluma. His family searched for Crash for 2 days, made flyers, posted on social media. Hundreds of people from the community showed up to help look for Crash. One volunteer, the pilot of a heat-detecting drone, found him.
Drone went to the perfect place after a sighting from a Petaluma resident, and he was hiding out in a field in a cow pasture, but he was way out there, so we would have never been able to see him from the road.
It was emotionally pretty draining when I got home. It all hit me all at once.
The workers with the San Francisco Drone Service say they used the infrared camera on the drone to look for warm spots, which made the search much easier. Crash's family says it's thankful for the search and rescue team's help. A protest is scheduled in San Francisco tomorrow in response to a new RV parking ban that went into effect over the weekend. Under the new rules, RVs parked on San Francisco streets for more than 2 hours can now be towed. San Francisco's Coalition on Homelessness is leading the demonstration, saying the ban will have a devastating impact on the hundreds of families who currently live in their RVs.
8:49 now. A documentary on labor leader Dolores Huerta had a special screening in San Mateo last night. The award-winning film Dolores was followed by a conversation with the 95-year-old organizer. It tells the story of Huerta as co-founder of the United Farm Workers, resulting in the first farm worker labor contracts. She told us the fight for workers' rights and immigrant rights is just as urgent as it was back in the 1960s.
And the way that they were treated, assaulted, beaten, arrested, and then killed.
And that's what we're seeing that's happening right now. But it wasn't at the wholesale level. What we are seeing right now, where innocent people are being kidnapped and being terrorized. And we hope that we will never ever see this again.
Huerta went on to say tax dollars should be going toward housing, education, and health care, not to intimidate and detain undocumented people.
Time is 8:50, and we have some bad news on Highway 37. They've closed it because they had to land an air ambulance there to pick up someone who was badly hurt in a motorcycle accident that happened about an hour and a half ago. Don't use Highway 37. You're being turned away. You might want to use the Richmond Bridge instead. It's also a mess in the East Bay. 580 East is slow. Westbound is slow because of a crash near MacArthur. Southbound 880 at 29th, there's a crash. Bay Bridge is still backed up before the maze. So it's not even raining. It's already a tough commute on a Tuesday. 8:51. Let's bring Steve back in with today's weather.
Have I told you about tomorrow, Sal?
I know. I'm ready.
Okay, good. So am I. All right, clouds north, sun south and east, as you saw in the traffic pictures. If you're Marin County north, more clouds. If you're far enough north, clouds and some rain. We've had rain in Mendocino County, a little bit in Lake County. Right, Chloe? Looks like it's tapered off a little, though. Sun and clouds at noon, and 4 o'clock, breezy and mild. I think along the peninsula, maybe Santa Cruz Coast and Santa Clara Valley could be pretty warm there for this time of year. Mid-70s possible. We're seeing 50s, 60s already. Livermore's already 60. Quarter inch to 2.5 inches should cover it, but I think wind's a big story. Wind makes people nervous. I don't blame you. Anywhere now, again, the heaviest gusts look to be about Marin County north, but rainfall will be Marin County north. But anytime you get these gusts, these wind warnings, wind watches, advisories, and high wind warning, that's a cause for concern. Heaviest rain will be Marin County, San Pablo Bay, Vallejo north. Windy, could be some pretty strong gusts. And I'll show you here. In the blue is the wind advisory. That's the lesser of the warnings. That starts at 10 o'clock. But in the red, Marin Coast, Point Reyes, up along the Sonoma coast, that's a high wind warning. Could be 65 miles per hour or greater if this all comes in. Now, you can see where the line is. It's staying there. It's stalled out. It needs something to kick it along, and there it is. That's a heck of a system. There's what we call a wave developing on it. That's another front on the front. That's a change in wind direction. It does a couple of things. Slows it down. Can also intensify the front a little bit. But these two will merge late tonight, tomorrow, then barrel through. But it'll be wind and then rain moving in. I think there'll be some hefty totals, especially Sonoma County northward, far less east and south. But Santa Cruz Mountains could get in on a little bit more. I mean, if Santa Cruz gets 44,100, somebody up there will get 3/4 of an inch. Half and half forecast. If you're north, it's cloud cover. And if you're far enough north, it's rain. But if you're east and south, it's sun this morning, and I think most of the day. 60s and some mid-70s, you guys.
All right, Steve. Pop stars, politics, and purpose. When you join us on the 9, the group that's signing up a new generation of voters, one tour stop at a time. At 8:55 now, we know all the official Bay Area venues for Super Bowl 60 festivities. The NFL and the Bay Area Host Committee announced the sites. Of course, Levi Stadium will host the Super Bowl itself on February 8th. Super Bowl opening night, where fans are invited to celebrate with both teams as they arrive in the Bay Area, will be at the San Jose Convention Center. The Super Bowl fan experience, as well as the Pro Bowl flag football game, will take place in San Francisco at Moscone Center, and the NFL honors ceremony will take place at the Palace of Fine Arts.
We're heading into the innovation capital of the world. The world and the change that happens in the world is usually born and bred in the Bay. And so our job is to really translate that into the experience fans will see and experience and what players will see.
Super Bowl 60 events will start on Monday, February 2nd and run up until Super Bowl Sunday.
San Francisco 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan confirms rookie defensive end Mykel Williams will miss the remainder of the season after tearing his right ACL. The injury happened with 4 minutes left in Sunday's win over the New York Giants. Williams, who was the 11th overall pick in the last draft, has started every game this season. He's been effective for San Francisco, particularly against the run. Shanahan says he was looking forward to watching all aspects of Williams' game continue to evolve. Meanwhile, the NFL trade deadline is today, and several high-profile players could still be on the move. One of the biggest names still dominating the rumor mill is Bengals defensive end Trey Hendrickson. The All-Pro pass rusher remains a coveted player for playoff contenders desperate for a late-season defensive boost. The Niners have been heavily linked to Hendrickson as they look to replace their injury-depleted defensive line in hopes of a potential playoff run. All 32 teams must have any deals officially submitted by the afternoon deadline.
At 8:57, Game 7 of the World Series between the Los Angeles Dodgers and Toronto Blue Jays on Saturday captivated North America, delivering record-breaking viewership. The thrilling extra-inning matchup drew nearly half of the entire Canadian population, with more than 18 million viewers tuning in for some portion of the decisive contest. In the U.S., the game averaged just under 26 million viewers in the U.S., peaking with over 31 million in the final dramatic moments.
San Francisco's Union Square ice skating rink is returning soon. The ice rink will open tomorrow. Will host events through January 19th. There will be Learn to Skate events with Kaiser Permanente on Saturdays and Sundays. There will also be Flashback Friday events where people can skate to the music of the 80s, as well as classical music nights and silent events with headphones and much more.
Holiday Magic is headed to San Francisco's waterfront as Pier 39 prepares to kick off the season. A 60-foot white fir weighing more than 6 tons is making its way from Bernie Mountain in Shasta County. By sunrise tomorrow morning, crews will lift the giant tree into place at the entrance of the plaza, marking the start of the holiday season. It will then be decked out with hundreds of ornaments and energy-efficient lights. Coffee, hot chocolate, and plenty of holiday cheer will be waiting at 6 a.m. You're watching Mornings on 2 to 9. Well, we'll start here in just a few seconds.
From the West Wing to the world stage, Dick Cheney left a mark few could match. We'll take a look at the life and legacy he leaves behind and his influence on American politics.
Then the fight for control of Congress in the hands of California voters, deciding whether to redraw the state's political map and to move the